Time to talk with the Prime Minister for the first time ever under level 3. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
These iwi-led roadblocks, how on earth can you justify them, if not support them?
Well, ultimately, Mike, I think the key thing here has been that the police have been involved. No one has the right to stop someone's legitimate movements, but I also have sympathy for people wanting to make sure that there isn't risk to their community, particularly older people. And so the key for us has been making sure that the police are working together on the ground. We haven't been encouraging community checkpoints, but police have been involved where there is a legitimate role for them to play, and I'm confident that they've done that in an appropriate way.
Since when does it become legitimate to take the law into your own hands?
Well, that hasn't happened because it wouldn't be appropriate for anyone other than the police and those who are able to, legally enabled to be stopping the legitimate movement of people.
But that's what a checkpoint is. Otherwise, I would simply drive past them.
And where they have occurred, police have been involved in them. Where they have been stopping people, police have been involved.
Well, why? If a checkpoint's required, why don't the police do it then?
Just, Mike, I just wouldn't mind if you've got an example, because some of the examples I've heard haven't been checkpoints in that way.
Well, the one allegedly set up today in the Taranaki Hone is one that seemingly started it all.
The one that I've heard police are involved in the ground and making sure that isn't stopping legitimate.
But that's like me turning up at a drink drive checkpoint and going, look, I'm a bit worried about my community officer, I'll just stand here and I'll help you out. That doesn't happen. No one's allowed to do that. If there's something to be taken care of legally speaking, it's the police's job.
Exactly.
Not the police plus a whole lot of community people who want to hang out there and allegedly protect their community.
But, Mike, there have been examples raised with me where I was told that there was a checkpoint. As it turns out, there were just two people who raised an issue with someone bringing a camper van into an area when they shouldn't have been moving camper vans around the country. So some of the reporting of them haven't been particularly
But the
accurate.
general premise, you support Maori standing on the roadside protecting their community a checkpoint.
We have not encouraged community checkpoints.
I didn't say encourage, I said support.
We have allowed, in fact, I'm not enabled to stop the police from an operational level working on the ground with communities where they've been concerned to work with them to determine whether or not the police should be part of community checkpoints in certain areas. And I'm leaving that to the police.
All right. Have a listen to what Deborah Russell said on the Drive program on Friday.
She rang me up just to sort of, as a good leader, say, hey, hang in there, you'll be all right. Just think about it and you'll be all right. So she's been really great.
So Deborah Russell insults most small businesses in this country, and your advice is to hang in there, it'll be all right.
Mike, I'm sorry if you're upset with the fact that I've looked out for the welfare of one of my MPs. That's my job. Everyone makes mistakes, and so when an MP of mine makes a mistake, I will give them a word of encouragement to tell them just to hang in there. Deborah knew what she said was wrong. She totally accepted that, and then, of course, she then experienced a lot of media response to that. And my job is to make sure that she knows when she's done something wrong, but equally that she's well supported.
Would you deal with this way with everybody? I mean, can we take it that the tongue lashings that you gave Ian Lees-Galloway and Claire Curran and Phil Twyford and David Clark were of similar, or
Mike,
did that never actually happen?
You've probably managed people in your time as well. There is no question that when I have a colleague who has made a mistake, they absolutely know that I am, when they've done wrong, when I'm disappointed in them, or when they've indeed lost their jobs. But at the same time, I don't think it's mutually exclusive that you can also be concerned about the well-being of your team.
Indeed not. So did you tell her that what she had done was wrong?
Yes.
Even though she said you didn't?
Record. Mike, I'm on public record. I said it in public.
But that's part of the problem. It's perception, isn't it? So publicly you go, what she said was wrong and we don't agree with it. But then you ring her up and go, oh, don't worry about it. It'll be all right by the end of the week.
That is not true, Mike. That is not true.
Well, that's her account. I'm just asking you about it.
That is not true.
What's not true?
Of course she knows that she did wrong. I said it publicly, but I equally was concerned for her well-being. I don't see those two things as mutually exclusive.
Scott Morrison and the WHO, he says there needs to be an investigation into them. Should there?
Into the WHO, but actually I don't know that I'd say that's an accurate reflection of what Scott's been saying. there's, of course, things that have to be learned out of this. This has been a global pandemic, Mike, so everything from, what happens in markets to the transmission to whether or not everyone moved globally fast enough. We all need to learn those lessons. And so what I've heard of Scott's comments, and indeed I think it actually started with Maurice Payne, his foreign minister, was really just raising the question of how that will happen. And I'd say we'd, of course, all be supportive of that.
Are you a bit suspicious they're too Chinese?
No.
Why not?
Because I have no grounds to have that view. But equally now I don't think is the time to be hauling over the coals of the WHO. I think we need to get through the pandemic and then we need to look back at how the world responded.
Is the wage subsidy scheme being rorted, do you think?
By the majority of people, no.
By some?
But we do have an audit, a small number potentially. We do have an audit function in place. What we did up front, though, Mike, was just flag those that we felt we needed to just take a look into right from the beginning. So, larger applications, there was that upfront audit and check. And we've also got a team compiled who are going back and retrospectively going through and undertaking audits of those who are recipients. A large number will have been sole traders, smaller organisations, but there's a group of larger ones in there as well. I note that, a meat processing company, for instance, have paid it back, not because they've done anything wrong, simply because actually the exports held. And so I think the majority of New Zealanders are doing the right thing.
Well, what's your thinking? I know what your answer is, but I'll ask it anyway. A bloke's done some work this morning. He's suggesting the morals of all of this, and he cites Sky City as, among others, a very profitable company, very successful company, paid lots of dividends, made lots of profit, etc., and yet got the wage subsidy. Would your counter to that be, we've opened it if you had a 30% reduction in business, and no matter how wealthy you started out as, if you qualify, you qualify?
Well, actually, my response to that would be the whole point of the scheme was to keep people attached to the labour market. And I think we ran a real risk. In fact, I don't know it will be true that without something like the wage subsidy, we would have had a large number of people made redundant in a very short space of time. And that wouldn't, for instance, have necessarily been necessary when we had always had the goal that through our strategy, we'd have New Zealand in a lockdown position for a short period of time and then a gradual reopening. So our goal was to keep people in work, and I think the wage subsidy has achieved that. I think it's also why a large number of countries have done exactly the same thing.
Cameron Bagri says you'll need to extend the wage subsidy. Do you think you will need to?
Well, it is a 12-week subsidy. And
I know, but you'll need to go beyond that.
Let's see how we travel. Obviously, at the moment, we're around the week 5 mark and seeing ourselves broadly opening up to the point that we've got roughly 75% of economic activity underway again. But we've got we are. But
that's the point, isn't it? It's not. The people who are open are not doing the business they were, which is not a criticism. It's just his point is that eventually, once week 12 ticks over, you're going to see a lot of unemployed people as they work out they're not paying the bills the way they used to. Therefore, you can go get the job seeker.
Yeah, and I think there is, obviously a hope that we can move as safely and as confidently as we can back down the levels. So at least we've got businesses able to operate. But you're right, they may experience a downturn in the amount of turnover. And so that's why we're continually assessing whether or not there's additional roles that we need to play.
Do we need rent relief?
Certainly there's been calls for it. We've gone as far as we can, and that was essentially mirroring what we did with residential when it came to commercial. We didn't have the ability to go any further than that, Mike.
Okay. In Queensland, you can go for a 50k drive, you can go for a picnic, you can do some non-essential shopping. Single people can meet other single people. National parks are reopened. Are we behind the curve here? Should we be doing more than we actually are? Are we too conservative?
No, we're doing what's right for New Zealand, and we're not risking things as we go. Keeping in mind, of course, that we've said stay regional. We haven't put kilometre definitions on it because, Mike, however far someone may travel for work might be further than that. We've relied there on people's common sense, and I have a lot of faith in New Zealanders.
But we aren't able to do as much in a country that you can compare directly with us. New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia are doing a lot more. They're open more. They're doing more. Their economics turning over more.
I hear competing things. There's rules on paper and then there's what's happening on the ground. So in some areas, retail have on their own shut. In fact, I was speaking to someone in politics over in Australia who said that actually they kept retail open. For many of those retailers, they would have been better off shutting. People weren't coming out, people weren't shopping, and of course, had there been that shutdown, they may have perhaps treated some of their packages from government differently. And so, ultimately, Mike, we need to wait and see. I think it's too early to finish with some of the comparisons and say who's done it right and who's done it wrong.
You would argue, sitting here this morning on day one of level 3, that we are on the right side of this.
Yeah, but ultimately also that we've done what's right for New Zealand. We had a higher rate of infection than Australia when we went into lockdown. We also have a different population base, and we needed to factor all of that in when we decided to do what we did.
Appreciate your time very much. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister, Tuesday morning.